Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Sports Report After Dark. I am your host, Seven. With me, as always, is my partner in crime, Dan the Dick Warner. As we get started, I do want to do a quick shout out, though, to our sponsor, Gunslinger Soap. They have handmade soap and beard products made without all the junk to pamper your skin. You can go to their website, gunslingersoap.com, and sign up to get 15% off of your first order. And also, of course, free shipping over $30. That's gunslingersoap.com. Definitely check them out. I use their products myself. This is actually their flagship brand of Gunslinger. It's all activated charcoal soap for the soaps. They have a great beard oil that I also use. Haven't been using as much as I should, but I am trying to get back in the habit of that. My favorite is the Maverick beard oil. It's got a very great woodsy scent to it. Definitely something great to help with your odor, fellas, and not smell so goddamn much. So definitely check those out. And Dan, we've got a lot to talk about tonight because I want to start at something first because I need you to calm me down here. So the other sports report, I don't know if you saw it. Gene made this asinine comment that we're talking about
not Gene.
I know, right? You're talking about the top tight ends.
Can I just guess real quick? I haven't seen it yet. Can I just guess what the gist of it is?
So he was unhappy
something
with
old
Darren
school
Waller's.
Is like way better because it's a myth.
No,
then new. Oh, sorry.
He said that he would take T.J. Hawkinson, tight end for the Lions, over Travis Kelce.
In what universe?
Thank you.
In whose universe?
And he's also trying to argue that Darren Waller should be ranked higher than George Kittle and Travis fucking Kelce. Come on.
Who even what? Who? T.J. Hawkinson? Who?
Yeah.
Who?
I didn't even remember what team he played for until I saw it in the ESPN article.
85% of NFL fans that actually watch football are going to be like, who?
Exactly.
The guy from Iowa?
Thank you. But yeah,
Corn and Slipknot, the only thing that came out of Iowa. not Corn the band, actual corn food.
Yeah, actual corn food. Yeah. No, I was just like,
that's absolutely ridiculous. Wait until I think he's going to be a regular guest, at least on the basketball show as well. Wait until you hear some of those conversations. Can you imagine just me and him? Like we're going to go down some rabbit holes that are just eventually the show's just going to like implode on itself. Like the screen's just going to like blacken. And then there's going to be a flash of light, and that'll just be the end of whoever's watching it will just disintegrate into ash.
You're going to physically turn into the Ark of the Covenant. His arguments are so bad.
From the absolute stupidity of both of our arguments, I'm sure. But just the combination will just turn into mustard gas and go through the screen.
So I also, before we dive into one of our main topics, which Lane Kiffin's comments about the NIL deals, I think it's a good topic to talk about. But I wanted to get your input first because you didn't get to talk about it in the Sports Report. So it was announced today that Russell Westbrook fired his agent, or that they have parted ways mutually over a differencing of opinion because he believes that Russ should stay in LA for this year because any team that would take him in a trade right now is going to do a buyout. And they're not going to do the trade unless he agrees to the buyout. And he's saying he doesn't want to do a buyout. He wants to play. None of these teams are wanting him to play. Do you think that Russ is making the right move here? And this is clearly trying to gamble on himself. Or do you think that this is only going to make it worse for him?
I would totally. I've never been the guy who says we need to get rid of him. Definitely. I've never really been that guy. If you remember, like I know that he's terrible, but like, I don't think the Lakers have to get rid of him necessarily. What they do have to do is they have to find a role for him. That's not what it is right now. Like he cannot he needs to be energy, sixth man, bring him off the bench. He does not start anymore. That's number one. You don't start him.
I think and the fact that when Darvin Ham was brought in, it wasn't necessarily LeBron that he was taking to dinner, and saying, don't sleep on LeBron James. No, he was saying, don't sleep on Russell Westbrook. I think Darvin Ham actually has a plan to get Westbrook AD and Braun to function together. Now, obviously, part of this is a healthy AD, which is the other issue that we've been dealing with. But I think that Darvin Ham, for everything, and everything that's going on in that organization, the struggles they have right now, I think Ham is trying to make the best out of a difficult situation and wants to put Russell Westbrook to work and try to help him bring his stock back up, if you will.
Is he not a perfect six man?
Honestly, yeah. If it was up to me, I would put him as a six man. But I think with you've got $47 million tied up to him, tied up in him if you're the Lakers. So you're gonna how do you?
It's not like that roster is so loaded that they need, that they already have somebody filling that six man slot. They don't have anybody off the bench. They really don't have depth at all.
But who do you put at the point if you bring him off the bench?
I don't know. Honestly, Austin Riley, but not Austin Riley, Austin Reeves.
Okay.
Just start Austin Reeves as a defensive guy and as a run the offense, take a three every once in a while guy, right? And then bring Russ in second for the energy, because that's gonna be their problem. I said it before last year, and it ended up being completely true. Was they don't care about the regular season, therefore there's no energy on the court at all. And Russ was good for that. That's the only thing he was good for. But he was running up and down the floor, he was playing hard the whole time, and that's great off the bench. When it just started at the beginning of the game, that's when all the turnovers and stuff happened and all the crazy stuff. Dribbling the ball and yeah.
You make a fair point, and I don't hate that, but I also wonder if it becomes a pride issue for the Lakers organization because you're paying six man $47 million. And I think that $47 million is the ultimate thing that's making the entire situation more difficult, is because of how much money you are sinking into Russell Westbrook this year. Let's say, for example, if we cut that pay in half and he's only doing we'll say $25 million. If you've only got $25 million tied up in Russell Westbrook, probably have a higher chance of being able to move him, first of all. But if you're going to stick with him because the cost of moving him is too great, you're not losing as much money if he has another year like he had last year.
Right.
I think the $47 million is the biggest reason why he won't play six man.
Right. So, but does that matter to him at this point? Because they're just trying to make it work. If they can't unload his contract and he has to stay there, that front office is telling Darvin Ham to make this work in any way possible. And I'm sure LeBron James would agree with that, correct?
He has to.
It needs to work, right? Kendrick Nunn is on that team. There's a starting point guard, honestly. Just play him. He's a D3 guy. I mean, yeah, we're not, like I said, not the deepest roster in the world. So you're looking at not really Taylor Horton Tucker can play a little point guard. Or you could completely change it. What they should do is they should play LeBron at the point, and like he was in 2020 when they won the title.
Fair.
Led the league in assists. He's your starting point guard.
But does Braun want to be the point?
I think that he does. Yes, 100%. Yeah. You're asking him to have the ball in his hands more? Of course he wants the ball in his hands more. He's not ball dominant, but he does want to bring it up. I think he's most comfortable.
He likes the control.
He's most comfortable with bringing it down the floor. There's no doubt about it. You can just see it in the games. I mean, he when he brings it down, gets the offense set up, and he's the best at it too. He's the best point guard in the NBA. I don't think there's seriously, point guard in the fact that he's a point forward. I don't mean pure point guard. Obviously that's not he plays every position legitimately. So he's kind of an outlier as far as best point guard, but I think he would be the best point guard in the NBA, especially with he's going to have some declining athleticism. We saw that last year. He's 37 years old.
The only concern that I would have about him at the point though, is if you're at the point, you're taking more threes.
So he's 38 years old. But yes.
Yeah, and
are you though?
I'm not
saying.
But if you look at it outside of your, with your teams with your pure shooters, obviously KD is going to probably have, or Kyrie are going to be leading their teams in 3-point shooting, or if they're on the same team, they're going to be up there together. But when you look at a lot of other teams, You see a lot more like, and obviously, like, well, okay, it depends on the player. But I think if you've got LeBron playing the point where he's going to be more towards the back, towards the top of the key or wherever when they bring the ball in, I think you see a lot more 3 attempts from him than maybe you would normally see from somebody that's a 38-year-old veteran.
But also, here's what sets it up too, though. When he brings the ball up the floor, Anthony Davis and him and the pick and roll are lethal. If Anthony Davis is healthy and both those guys are running the pick and roll with point and 4, right? Davis at the 4, LeBron's running the point. That's at least something that you can rely on every time down the floor, because I'm going to say it again. This roster is not good. Okay. Like some of the names on this roster, I'm going to read them to you, Tony. You're going to go, who? Like, do you know who Mason Jones is? Do you know who Thomas Bryant is? Set to be their starting center. Damian Jones, Wenyen Gabriel, Stanley Johnson, Taylor Horton Tucker. We know that name barely. Austin Reeves, because it's funny for all the white guys. Juan Toscano Anderson. All right. So we got a Latino guy. So that's a plus. We're keeping the diversity. Kendrick Nunn, who's 26 and seems like he is 33 years old. He seems like he is a 14-year veteran of the NBA, and he is 26. Shocking. You got Shaq's son, Sharif O'Neal, Scottie Pippen Jr., who actually looks like there's your starting point guard. If you want a true starting point guard.
And that was actually a question that I was going to present to you, because with watching what you've seen with the Summer League, is Scottie Pippen Jr. ready for the NBA?
I hope, because it's probably going to be a get out there and be somebody, son. That's probably what it's going to be.
Honestly, he's what, 19?
He is 21.
Oh, is he 21? Okay.
Doug Christie's son, Max Christie, like craziness.
It's an interesting concept, but I'm gonna go back to I think because of the value of his contract, Russ does not come off the floor in a 6. He's starting. I think ultimately Darvin Ham thinks he can make it work with Russ as the starting point guard.
I like that. That's whatever. We don't know what he's got planned. He's had all this time off at this point. Not off. He was an assistant, correct?
Yeah.
He was an assistant in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So he's just been, but he's also just been sitting back. I mean, he studies the league the whole time. That's all he does is watch film. So if you don't think that he has a game plan for probably all 30 teams, that if he went, hey, if I got that head coaching job, that's what I'd do. Right. And I guarantee with the LA connections and everything, and they probably started talking to him pretty early. They were like, hey, maybe get ready because we might look at you to be the head coach. He probably just poured himself into it. And he probably sat there and just watched a bunch of film on him. And he thinks he's got something figured out. If he does, I mean, it wouldn't be that hard to do with how multifaceted LeBron James is and Anthony Davis is. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, they can do so many different things. Those two guys alone are so versatile that you can kind of do whatever you want with them. And then you have the rest of the team of a bunch of random guys who have different skills. And hopefully he has a plan, because
he's got to scheme that shit. I think like this is an Andy Reid, but in basketball terms, requirement of strategy to really make this team work.
Tony, they're gonna have to go annexation of Puerto Rico, Little Giants.
Exactly. No, that's exactly right.
Prisoners against the guards.
You've got to figure out how you can utilize each of these players' skill sets, because this team is not one of those teams that's built where a lot of these skill sets intertwine and overlap and complement. It's more, like you said, a bunch of different guys with different skills. And
a guy I didn't mention, I don't think, Lonnie, probably the biggest pickup that they had, Lonnie Walker the fourth.
Okay. Yeah.
Was in San Antonio.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
He averaged 12 points, 2 boards, 2 assists last year. Came off the bench. Or no, he actually, it looks like he started a couple of games. He started about half the games. That's probably your starting shooting guard. Okay.
That's fair.
Probably your starting shooting guard with Russ at the point. Probably what? Taylor Horton Tucker at the 3, LeBron at the 4, Anthony Davis at the 5 is your starting 5. Not bad. Stanley Johnson, good player, small forward, could start for defense. I have no idea what they're going to do with that. It depends. Like we said, it kind of depends on what Darvin Ham wants to do, because we have no idea at this point. If he has a plan for us, great, but don't have it be him actually being a prototypical point guard, because that's obviously not how this works.
No,
right? It's not how Russ has ever worked.
No. And then on the other side, as the time has pressed on since KD and Kyrie both requested trades, the conversation is shifting with Brooklyn because of and I think it was intentionally high price tag that was set for KD, and a lot of teams not being interested in Kyrie because of the whole availability and buy-in issue that you get with Kyrie Irving. There's a lot of conversations about the possibility of Brooklyn actually now looking at having to make this work for at least a year. But when you look at the potential of that, Ben Simmons, KD, and Kyrie Irving, that could be a deadly lineup if they all play.
Right. And if they're all not in La La Land, or,
trying to prove that the earth is flat.
Thinking the earth is flat and that dinosaurs never existed.
Or that people had dinosaurs as pets.
Yes, that's that kind of tomfoolery is going on. If that kind of tomfoolery is going on, then no. But no, obviously that duo is amazing. Like you can't look past that. But what are they though as a duo? Like they score a lot of points. Do they do anything else really? And
that's the thing is a lot of the issue with Brooklyn last year is they relied too much on ISO ball. You have to have an offense this year. You can't just go ISO. It's not going to work.
No,
it is not going to. There's not a team that could make that work. And that's the real.
Doesn't win titles.
You're not winning titles if all you're doing is ISO and small and small ball. Like it's just it's not going to work.
Ask the Houston Rockets how that goes.
Exactly. And so that's why I think that you have to, if you're the Nets and you're like, because especially with KD, the league does not want KD to be traded. Adam Silver specifically has said that because it sets a bad precedent since he just signed a 4-year deal. And I completely get that. Right. I really do. So, and then when you look at Kyrie, you're not going to get anywhere near the value of Kyrie back if you trade him at this point because of the issues that the Nets have had and how publicized they've been. Right. I don't think you get truly back what you want. And the Nets are standing firm on their stance that we want to get back what we should. And so the way that you do that is you make them play together for your look. You guys want to be able to go to different places and do different shit. Guess what? You're playing.
You're going to play and you're going to show people that you can still play like we paid you to play.
Right.
And once that happens and you're valuable again, because neither of you are really that valuable at this. Well, KD's valuable.
KD's valuable, but the precedent of trading him when he just signed a 4-year deal, you can't open up that door if you're the NBA. And I get that completely. Did I lose you?
Oh, that was weird. No, I got you now. Yeah, for a second we did. But the first article that I see here is the New Jersey News says Brooklyn Nets star Kevin Durant, Kyrie, no, in quotation marks, a trade is unlikely to happen. They know that they're probably going to have to play together. I don't know if they're just making this. I don't know if they're just making this a drama thing or a entertainment thing on purpose. But if you do, Tony, here's my question to you: if those two, if Brooklyn says, which I would do at this point,
honestly, they should. They should.
If I'm Brooklyn management, I go, hey, fuck you. Both you guys are playing. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Like you guys aren't getting out of this. You're fucking babies and you're just going to play. And I don't care if you act like your ankle's hurt for the entire time. And we're going to make it apparent that you're acting like your ankle is hurt. And good luck with that, because we're just going to publicly humiliate you the entire season. And right. But like, if that happens and they make him play, Steve Nash is gone, right?
No. Because, and I think Steve Nash stays because KD was one of the ones that heavily lobbied for Steve Nash as the coach. And Kyrie was saying, man, we don't need a coach. Yeah. So this is part of their punishment, is you make them ride this out with Steve Nash for another season and prove that it's Nash and not you. Because right now, if Steve Nash were to get fired, everybody would be like, well, that was a clusterfuck. He deserves, he deserves a more legitimate team. Argument is going to be floating around. I'm not saying it's valid, because I do think Nash was part of the problem in Brooklyn.
Right.
Because he did not get control of that locker room, which is something you absolutely have to have as the head coach of an NBA basketball team.
Well, did you hear what was going on with that?
What do you mean?
Or at least like the with Nash, and why they immediately were kind of like pushing back against him? Because he came in, and I mean, they had been there for 2 years already, or what? Yeah,
a year.
A year. Okay.
At least a year. Yeah. At least a year.
Yeah. They had been there a year already. And Nash comes in, and he was like, he just tried to completely change the culture. Like, was making them run after practice and stuff, like in the NBA, which is that's not standard. Like you get your running during drills, you get your running during scrimmage, stuff like that. You don't run lines. Like there's no suicides in NBA practice. Like they expect you to be in shape already. And like Nash,
it's not their job to keep you in shape. You have to do that on your own time.
Nash basically came in and tried to set like a hard-nosed precedent, like, hey, this is what we're going to do, like Coach Carter style. Like no, that's not how it works. Like this isn't Remember the Titans, bro. Like,
right.
You can do that for a high school basketball team, maybe, but not in the pros.
That's what's going on. I also think that we're going to see, I think that Nash changes his approach regardless of who's on his roster this year. I think that Nash changes his approach because And some of what he's doing may stem from his experience with coaches, because that's a lot of us do when we transition to those upper roles, is we're going to reference our experience from those people that were in those roles that we learned from.
Right.
Obviously, he understands some of those things that he did last year did not work.
Right.
And so now you transition into looking at the more conventional methods that are used now. And that's how you reestablish control. But he's got to do something. I love Steve Nash when he was a Phoenix Sun. But as a coach, I said when he was hired, I didn't think it was the right choice.
You said that he needed to be an assistant.
Yeah.
You said that he needed to be an assistant, and because of exactly what you just said. You can see it from one side and think that that's a good way to coach, but until you see it from the other side and you see it from the actual coach's perspective, you have no idea if that's a good way to coach or not.
He has spent zero time in that coaching mentality.
But who were even Mike D'Antoni's not a disciplined guy.
No.
D'Antoni was what most of his it was D'Antoni. Don Nelson, not a disciplined guy. Don Nelson was the original when he was with Dirk in Dallas
for a little bit too.
What's that?
Didn't Danny Ainge coach in Phoenix for a little bit too?
I don't know if Ainge was there when Nash was there. That would have been a little bit earlier, I think. That would have been when Nash was in Dallas. Because Nash was in Dallas for like 4 years.
You're right. You see, for some reason, I think that Nash was on Phoenix for his whole career. I forget that he was in Dallas for a little while first.
Yeah, he was in Dallas.
It was at the end of his career, wasn't it?
No, it was the beginning.
It was the beginning?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, he was a rookie, and I want to say he was a rookie with Phoenix, and then went to Dallas, and then came back to Phoenix is how his career went, if I am not mistaken. So you should look that up, though. But I think that's how it went. But it might have just been Dallas, and then anyway. But early in his career, he was with Dallas, and that was when Dirk was there. That was Dirk and Michael Finley.
You're right, because he was with the Suns for 2 years. That's where he started. He went to the Mavs for six. And then back to the Suns for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And then his last 2 seasons were with the Lakers.
It was that what years was he with Dallas?
It was 2000, so 99 to 2003, he was with Dallas.
Okay. That 2003 team their starting five was Eric Dampier, terrible. But from that, you get Dirk Nowitzki, Anton Jameson, Michael Finley, and Steve Nash. And then off the bench, they had Marquise Daniels. What they do? Marquise Daniels, couple other guys that another center, I think. Antoine Walker was on that team.
Okay, I remember him. Yeah,
remember that? Like Antoine Walker was on that team late in his career, and like that team was crazy good. They won like 60 games in the regular season a couple of times. But then it was shocking when like I was a huge Mavs fan because of Dirk, and I loved Steve Nash, and then he just left and went to Phoenix.
Phoenix, yeah.
Signed that big deal, and like Cuban was shocked. Cuban thought he had him wrapped up. Cuban stopped talking to him, like eventually because he thought he had him in the bag, like they had already talked about it and stuff. And then Cuban saw it on the news that Nash had signed with Phoenix.
I didn't know
Nash
that.
Wow. Yeah, Nash didn't call him or anything. Well, I think it got leaked, and I think it got leaked before they were even wanting to put it out. So he probably would have called him and told him. But like he figured out on the news, and he was. You can imagine how Cuban reacted to that. I'm sure he was really happy. I'm sure he made some very pleasant phone calls. But it's like dude from Tropic Thunder. Like, give me that phone. I don't know what Asian Pan Pacific power play you're trying to play here.
That's one of the best, one of the most under talked about, but amazing roles that Tom Cruise ever played was his role in Tropic Thunder. It was fucking beautiful.
There's a couple,
and it was an entire shot on the movie industry and how he played that role. His entire goal with playing that role was just to completely insult the entire executive side of the movie industry. It was fucking beautiful.
He describes his Tropic Thunder character. I mean, they let him make the character up.
Yeah.
And he said, I don't know. I wanted hairy arms, sausage fingers. He's like, I wanted a comb over. And he's like, and just greasy. He's like, I just wanted to be a greasy, dirty. And he's like, and it was perfect. Why don't you take a step back and literally fuck your own face when he's talking? He makes
Hold on.
The very first time you see him, he makes the key grip punch fucking the director in the face. That's the first thing he does.
Hold on. I'm looking at something because I wonder. Oh, so it was okay. I knew it was one of two people that he was really portraying in his own way. It was either Harvey Weinstein or Les Grossman. It was Les Grossman, the CBS exec that was really slimy. That's who he was basing his character off of.
His name in the movie is Les Grossman. His name in the movie is Les Grossman.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Okay. So that makes even more sense.
So I think it's supposed to be all of them. But yeah.
Okay. All right, so let's dive into this. So for those of you that weren't aware, Lane Kiffin made some comments recently about what college sports is dealing with right now with NIL deals. And there were some comments that he made that I think were especially interesting and are definitely worth discussing because it's something that I definitely foresee coming in some form to college sports. And he said that in an ideal world, and this is a direct quote from ESPN article, in an ideal world, there would be an NFL-style system for name, image, and likeness in which a head coach or GM would have the ability to facilitate funds from collectives and donors, and every program would be held to a salary cap. But because there's no salary cap and because coaches can't be involved in directing NIL funds, Kiffin said, you've got a whole other set of problems. If you've got boosters out there deciding who they're going to pay to come play and the coach isn't involved in it, how's that work? Do they just pick who they want? And then when they don't play, how's that going to work out? And I think that is something that I hadn't thought about because my assumption was always that the players that are getting these NIL deals have already committed to the school. And what I'm finding out is that's not the case.
Yeah, no,
so, go ahead.
No, yeah, it's the Wild Wild West. 100%. I heard Matt Leinart talking about it. Matt Leinart's in with all those guys at USC and everything. I think he does a lot of like he is a booster. He's a booster for USC. There's no get way around it, right? So
it's the only place that he mattered were playing football. So of course he is.
Right. Old Matty Noodle Leinart. But yeah, he
good enough to play for the Cardinals.
Oh boy, yeah, they put a lot of stake in him too. That's one of the mistakes they made. Got that big fancy new stadium. But anyway, yeah, he was University of Phoenix. He was get your education. He was talking to Colin Cowherd about it, and he was like, it's just the Wild West. He's like, nobody has any idea what's going on. He's like, some of these guys are taking money from people, saying they're going to go somewhere, and they don't have to. So they're just taking the money, they get it, and then they just go somewhere else. He's like, we have no idea where they're. He's like, some of them are going to Division II schools. We have no idea where they're at because the Division II school paid them more money. Like, it's just a freaking free for all, basically. Like, there's no rules. It's just the Wild West. And so, like, there needs to be some kind of structure to this. And
absolutely,
they got what they wanted. And now it's like, okay, so now you got to figure out how to get, like, what you wanted is there in principle. Now you have to figure out how to actually run it without it being just a freak show. Because, yeah, like, you don't have to commit or anything. And you would think the athletic director would be the guy who would have to undertake that, right? You'd have to have a staff that would now have to undertake that whole thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And here's my thing. And I think that there's a few things that are problematic here. And the first of which is what a lot of people don't think about is the rulings with players being able to unionize and NIL rules and stuff like that being, rulings being issued by our court system in the United States. These things have been going on since 2012. That's truly when this started, because that's when the Supreme Court ruled, I believe it was 2012, was when the Supreme Court originally ruled that colleges could not profit off of the name, image, and likeness of players, and the players should be, unless the players were getting compensated for their name, image, and likeness. Basically the players deserve to get compensated for their shit. And a lot of this stemmed from the old NCAA games on video game console, because, the colleges were getting their players in these games and getting paid for it. But the actual individuals that these players were created to be in the games, they weren't getting paid for it. And you have a right to get paid for your name, image, and likeness, and where it's used in any form.
Right. And in that case, it was just image and likeness, right? Because
all three: name, image, and likeness.
They did the name for a while, and then I remember they had to change it because the ones I played always had Florida's quarterback was QB number 10 or whatever, and it was Tebow or whatever his number was. But you could clearly tell he's a left-handed quarterback, same size. They put all the same equipment on him, even without using his name at that point, they were still using his likeness and his image.
Right. But it was, they were just trying to get around it. But that's why the NCAA games for both football and basketball on consoles stopped, was because of that. The NCAA has had a decade to prepare for what was coming, because in 2012, when that ruling was made, it was already being talked about that college players were going to eventually get paid for their name, image, and likeness. When the Reggie Bush situation happened, it was talked about college players were going to be getting paid for their name, image, and likeness. The NCAA should have already had regulations ready and prepared that had been worked out with the schools. That way, there was some control of the situation when it kicked off, because the NCAA's lack of preparedness is what has caused so many problems in this situation.
Right. It's like they wanted to get it done so bad, and then they didn't realize, like, oh shit, it got done. and nobody had any plan in place.
Well, no, the NCAA didn't want it to happen at all. They were against it the whole time.
Okay.
The government made the NCAA allow this, and that's why it's happening.
God, that's even better. It actually makes me happy.
Because their position has always been their students before their athletes. I respect that. But college sports has turned into $1 billion industry.
Exactly. Yeah. I was going to say,
these players were getting benefits and pay under the table the whole time. Now with NIL, just like we've said multiple times on the show, it's just out in the open. It's no longer behind closed doors. The NCAA should have been prepared for this, and they weren't. This is the NCAA's fault from the top down.
Absolutely. And what other reason did they not want this to happen other than some money is going to get taken out of their pockets?
And that's exactly what it is.
Ultimately, that's what it is. They knew money was going to get taken out of their pockets, and instead of trying to be like, okay, this is inevitable, let's just go ahead and give in. We got beat. Let's admit we got beat, and let's try and make this a smooth transition. They were like, nope, never going to happen. And then they were like, oh, it happened. And they were like, oh shit, we're
Exactly.
a little behind. And now they're just paying for it.
And that's
for their own pride.
It's, one of the individuals that I follow a lot, because he talks about some interesting shit when it comes to business and getting yourself out there and how you should approach yourself. If you haven't had a chance, you should check out Garyvee. He's an entrepreneur. He's done a lot of good things. He's made a lot of money, and he's a very unconventional way about presenting himself. He's not afraid to cuss. He's not afraid to challenge the norms in business. And he uses Blockbuster as an example. And some of the videos that he did in the past, when he talks about Blockbuster, Blockbuster didn't think about ways to put themselves out of business and move into those sectors. And that's why Netflix killed Blockbuster and Hollywood Video and the video rental sector. Because when Blockbuster tried to do the Redbox thing that they did, that was in some places that didn't last for very long, they were already behind. Right. They tried to look at some online streaming stuff before they really started to go under, but they were already behind. Blockbuster actually had a chance to buy Netflix at one point when it was in its infancy, and they turned it down because they said that the mail order and online sector wasn't going to take off.
Contrary to all of their data as well. Contrary to all of the data that pointed exactly towards it was going to take off. They were like, people are always going to want to come to our stores and get the movie instead of just having it in their house. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? And
it's just like the reason that Amazon almost killed Walmart was because Walmart didn't put as much of an investment in their online sector in a quick enough form. And that's why Walmart is behind in the online sector right now, is because they said, no, people are going to want to come grocery shop at our stores. Had they been in the online sector as aggressively as they should have been before, we would have been doing grocery pickup orders from Walmart a decade ago.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Right. And like I've been on like periodically I've been on Walmart's app or whatever to look around and stuff, usually at baseball cards, but like their inventory's never updated.
No,
the way that they run the app is incredibly behind what Amazon does. Amazon figured all that stuff out. Amazon just trial and errored it for like 5 years before Walmart even was trying to put all their stuff on there. Like they were just trial and erroring, like, oh, this doesn't work, fix it this way. And like, they just had all those ins and outs fixed. And and then Walmart gets around and it's like, it's just a shitty way to shop online. Nobody wants to do it. Like, why? And
and this is the prime thing. Walmart was not aggressive in looking at how to manage their business. And the NCAA chose to dig their heels in, hoping that they would eventually win. But, it's that Simpsons meme with Principal Skinner. Is it the youth that are wrong, or is it me? No, it's got to be them. This is principal. We'll call it Principal Skinner syndrome, just to give it a name.
Right.
That's exactly what this is, because the NCAA has failed themselves, and they are setting so many of these young individuals up for failure because they're getting millions of dollars they don't know how to manage. They have zero incentive to actually even stick with the athletics because I've got $10 million. Why do I even need to be in college?
Right. What is
the lack of structure with this is entirely the NCAA's fault. And it's only going to get worse before it gets better. Otherwise, there may be a huge breakdown of some kind in college sports as a whole, because right now, just as you said, it's the Wild West. They're in the rolls.
I mean, realistically, at some point, there's got to be it would be almost like an MLB system. And I think we've talked about this, like where you would go, if you want to go to college and play football, then we still have our teams, we'll still have all of our stuff. You won't get paid. You'll get paid exactly the same way that you used to get paid. Some of them will get paid probably underneath the table to go there or whatever, but they'll just be it'll just be a developmental league for the NFL. And if you want to go there, you don't have to go to college, right? If you still want to go to college and play in that league, they'll probably make reparations or whatever, or you have to just play in that league and go to college. Like, if you want to do that, that's your choice, and it's going to be hard work, right? But at some point, they're going to have to separate the 1% who makes it to the NFL from all the rest of these guys, because those are the guys who are getting paid. You know what I'm saying? Like the 53rd guy on the roster isn't getting paid any money to go there. He might be getting a scholarship, not like even maybe scholarship, maybe not even a full ride. Yeah, they're just like $5,000 a year. right? So that's not who we're talking about. We're talking about the top 1%, the guys that are going to the NFL, the Reggie Bushes of the world, those guys who were just, they knew they were going to the NFL when they got there when they were 18. That's the guys who get paid, and that's the guys who will eventually, and there's enough of them, to play in a developmental league, and you can send the college guys in there. Say a guy goes to college for 2 years, wants to join that league, he's good enough, makes a team, bam, that's fine. You went to college for 2 years and you left.
Use it like the G League versus like college basketball, basically.
Exactly. Yep.
I think that, well, and the problem is the other issue with NFL specifically, with players going from college football to the NFL specifically, is there are so many players that when they get to the NFL, they're still not ready after having played at least 3 years of college football.
Exactly. That's
there is, you're a 1 in a million chance of being a rookie starting quarterback in the NFL that will have a successful career.
There's really no other sport that you have to be that physically. You got to be a man to play in the NFL. Like, you have to be physically a full-grown man. Like, some of these 18-year-old kids, like Chet Holmgren. Chet Holmgren is not a full-grown man yet. No. Like, and he is capable of playing in the NBA because it's not a contact sport. It doesn't take that brute physicality all the time. So, like, that's the weirdest part about this is, like, there has to be that 3-year period. That's why you can't come out before you're a junior, or before you're junior, third year in college football. You can't come to the NFL because they don't want you to die. Like, some of these 18-year-old kids that could play in the NFL, they're 18. There's no way they could match the physicality of the NFL guys. I don't care how talented they are.
And because the NFL is so much more of a physical game, they need that time to develop and get used to the increase in the physical damage of playing football. And then the other thing that you see as a weakness is, like, quarterbacks coming out of college. Most of them don't know how to read defenses because they haven't had to.
Right.
And then you get these guys that get drafted in these early positions, Zach Wilson, Mac Jones, Trevor Lawrence, Tua, the list goes on. Baker is, so what's really crazy with all the criticism about Baker Mayfield, he was a Heisman Trophy winner, and he started as a rookie, and he's one of the few that's actually had a little success out of that.
He didn't crash and burn, which is what
he
most of them do.
He didn't, exactly, which is what most of them do. Quarterbacks that win the Heisman don't have the best track record in the NFL.
No, I mean, look at all of the guys who are the best quarterbacks in the NFL right now. Tom Brady at Michigan didn't even really start until his senior year. Right?
And 199th pick in the draft.
199th pick. Patrick Mahomes plays at Texas Tech. Got beat a bunch. God-awful coach, god-awful offensive line, god-awful team, really. I mean, middle-of-the-road team, had to run for his life, had to read defenses because there wasn't anybody blocking. Aaron Rodgers. Cal, not a big football program, really. Not significant. Pac-12. Doesn't have, had to do things in call. A lot of these guys had to do things. One of the only outliers I can think of is Peyton Manning. And Peyton had a hard road to a lot of those. Like, Peyton didn't win a title in college.
Look at how many of these, we look at, with so many of these skill positions, Alabama is like a direct pipeline to the NFL with a lot of skill positions. But also when you look at it, how many of those guys flame out?
A lot of them, because there's a lot of them, of the skill guys, but a lot of them because there's a lot of them, but they also have a lot of skill guys who excel. I mean, there's like 8 starting Alabama wide receivers in the NFL right now. So, like, a lot of these linebackers,
they have, the only reason they have so many stick, if I take a whole pot of spaghetti and throw it against the wall, 8 noodles are going to stick. But if I take one handful of spaghetti and throw it up there, I'm still going to, 2 or 3 are going to stick.
Right. And with quarterbacks, obviously, the point you're kind of trying to make too is Alabama position players excel mostly, right? Because there's so many of them. That's the program they go into. They're the most talented in high school. They're the most talented in college. They go to, and that's what they're trying to do the whole time they're there too. Is just they're just getting into the NFL, and let's win some national titles on the way, right? Nick Saban figured that out. But Alabama quarterbacks, what do?
A whole lot of nothing.
Because they got everybody else around them doing everything for them. I mean, Mac Jones is the most successful Alabama quarterback that's outside of Joe Namath.
Yeah.
That's it.
He's actually out of that year, because when you look at the quarterbacks out of last year that were rookies, Mac Jones, despite the fact that he wasn't the first overall pick, I don't think he was even in the top 10.
I think Mac Jones went in the 20s because it was in the teens because it was
the Patriots that picked him.
Yep.
And it was in he wasn't even a top 10 pick, and he wasn't the starter at Alabama either. Because Tua was the starter, wasn't he?
Mac Jones started his last year. Mac Jones won a title his last year.
Oh, all right. So I stand corrected on that. But there's so much talent in that locker room that people are picking it apart. You've got, guys that were second and third string that are getting picked in the draft because they played for Alabama, and they're failing.
Mac Jones
went
not
15. That good.
Mac Jones went 15, okay. And Mac Jones has also benefited from the fact that he went from a great program to an excellent. He went to the greatest college program to probably the greatest NFL program franchise. So he's got Belichick. He's got that stability of that defense. So Mac Jones has kind of had an easy ride to it so far to be successful. Like he's been set up to be successful.
Here's the thing. If you put, I think, we'll say him, Tua, and Trevor Lawrence, probably the top 3 quarterbacks out of that draft, right?
Tua, Trevor Lawrence,
and Mac Jones.
Out of that one, sure.
Okay. So when we look at that, if you put Trevor Lawrence up in New England, he has a better season than he had in Jacksonville. That's easy to argue.
100%.
I think but Tua, because the issues with Tua are not skill-based, they are arm strength-based. That's one of, his decision-making and arm strength are his 2 biggest problems. I think Tua is the only one that actually fails going to New England. I
fails, maybe not, but definitely doesn't have as much success as those other guys, I don't think. Because I don't think Belichick would allow him to fail. I think he would have at least.
Okay, all right. So all right, I'll give you that. Yeah, I'll give you that.
Which is the worst case scenario.
He performs the least out of those 3 in New England. But there are so many people that are going to say that Trevor Lawrence and Tua were better college quarterbacks than Mac Jones. And they were not.
Trevor Lawrence was. Trevor Lawrence was a better college quarterback.
Trevor Lawrence was, yeah.
The quarterbacks that went before Trevor Lawrence or Mac Jones was Trevor Lawrence, number 1.
Yeah.
You also had Justin Fields, Zach Wilson. Who else was it? I'm trying to think here.
Oh, I keep forgetting about Zach Wilson. But Zach Wilson, he's
Trey Lance.
And Trey Lance was the other one, yeah. Honestly, Zach Wilson is another one. I think he could be like Darnold and Stafford and actually have some potential outside of the Jets organization if he can get out.
He could be that. He could be that, or he could be Drew Lock. Because unfortunately, that's who he reminds. That's his NFL comp for me is Drew Lock. That he's got a cannon arm, kind of aloof. Like he wants to be Aaron Rodgers, but he's not good enough to be. And that's the worst.
He looks like Ellen DeGeneres and fucks women the same age as her.
Yes.
But
his dates are already too old.
He likes dating older women because he gets to go to dinner at 4:00 and eat at a discount. Those rookie deals pay nicely, but not that nicely.
No.
But I do think for Zach Wilson, I think if he had a better situation, because for me, the Jets are one of the worst organizations in the NFL. I have zero faith in their ability to develop a player. So I am always going to err on the side of the organization when a rookie doesn't produce the way that they should, the way that the expectations are that they will. It's that I always blame the organization on that because it is the organization's job to get these players up to speed.
Without getting too far off topic, why is that with the Jets? Without getting too far off topic,
it's the consistency of results. Because with very limited exception, over the last 20 years, the Jets have not been even a blip on the radar.
So
they've had a couple of seasons where they did all right, and I know that it hasn't been literally every year, but the Jets have consistently been a subpar team. They've changed coaches, they've changed complete roster overhauls, and even changing GMs, and we're still not seeing anything. Even a broken watch is right twice a day.
Right,
but the Jets can't seem to develop any kind of consistency. And so I legitimately believe that the problem with the Jets organization starts at the top, because you can only have so many times where these problems are persisting before you have to look at the top of the organization and go, you are not doing things right so that everybody below you can do their job.
Their vice president of operations was a marketing. Jessica Ciccione was was in their marketing department for like 19 years before. She's a second year as vice president, which you can't really say she's done a bad job because it's her second year and they've always sucked. So it's not like she's doing a bad job.
That's why I'm even going above her. I'm going all the way at the top of the Jags organization with the ownership, because ultimately that's where the buck stops.
Right, that's
been the consistent theme throughout the entire history of the organization, especially over the last 20 years. The ownership of the Jets hasn't changed in 20 years, but they've had 2 winning seasons in that time frame.
Okay, so it's Christopher Johnson owns them.
Right.
I didn't know. I didn't
know his name, but
Robert Wood Johnson was his dad, and he owned him before. So you have a son owning the franchise after his dad does. That never goes well. That never goes well.
Nope.
He's probably, honestly, I don't know Christopher Johnson, but I'm going to make an assumption that the guy's a pretentious douchebag. Just off the top, he's a billionaire's son.
He's a victim of the environment. So I'll say that in a compassionate
not his fault.
sense.
Honestly,
it's not entirely his fault. He's a victim of the environment, but
probably an okay guy one-on-one.
Cultures that win develop players well as well. Like there's you don't see a culture that's winning in any sport that doesn't have the ability to develop young talent just as much as they have the ability to grab free agent superstars or grab a free agent and turn them into a superstars. Look at the Yankees and Matt Carpenter. This is a prime fucking example. If the Diamondbacks pick up Matt Carpenter, he's hitting 200.
Right.
But because the Yankees, it's the right situation. Yankees had the ability, because they have the resources to fix Matt Carpenter.
And reputation and history also, like the Red Sox have. Like the Red Sox have. Tradition.
The Red Sox have, yes.
Tradition, reputation, history. It's just like we had Stephen Weaver said it last night. He said, it felt different being in those pinstripes. He's a Red Sox fan, guys.
He was a Red Sox fan that got to play for the Yankees. Blown away by just wearing the pinstripes, being in that locker room and everything because of the history. And it would be exactly the same way for somebody who plays for the Red Sox or somebody who's on the Dodgers roster. I mean, that's going to make you immediately a better player, just because you don't want to fuck that up. Because the standard in these teams that have a championship history is much higher than it is in the teams that don't. And so that's why, because the Jets aren't putting that culture in place. They aren't investing money in the right developmental coaches. They're not investing money in the facilities that their team has. One of the reasons with like the Dallas Cowboys, they have not won a championship since it was 95, right? Was when they won their last Super Bowl, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
But the reason why the standard, if you become a Dallas Cowboy player, is so much higher is because Jerry pays his players. Jerry invests in his facilities. Now, yes, the coaching has been an issue and they've invested in some of the wrong players, and that's where it starts. But guess what? That's the leadership making those decisions and not picking the right players. And specifically, the owner, Jerry Jones.
The guy who signs your paycheck. There's nobody in between.
You know, the Cowboys are the Jets if they spend as much money as Jerry Jones does.
Yeah, I mean, say that again.
The Cowboys, I'm sorry. So the Jets are the Cowboys if the Jets spent as much money as the Cowboys do.
Right. I could see that.
You know, and on the flip side, if Jerry Jones only invested into the Cowboys organization what Christopher Johnson invests in the Jets organization,
he's the Jags.
He's the Jags.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's what all these baseball franchises, like we talk about that all the time.
Yeah.
These baseball teams that, like, if you're going to own a professional sports franchise, fucking pay attention to it, please. Like, pay attention to it, or at least hire somebody with all your money and put enough money into it and pay attention, or at least have somebody else who is paying attention to it, because some of these owners are just, they don't care. It's clearly just a piggy bank for them. It's just a piggy bank where they can get
money, right?
People to come, and people still come to the games because it's the Reds, right? People in this baseball, it's America's pastime. They're still going to come to the games. So they'll just trickle in all this money, and it's just a solid number for them. They don't care about if the fucking Reds do well or not, even though they own the team. There are plenty of people who would like to make the Reds competitive. So if you're not going to sell the team, if it's just like a side business for you, you're a billionaire. Go own another side business that people aren't invested into and that isn't people's getaway and isn't people's enjoyment and fun. Does that make sense? Like,
and because you look at cities that have successful sports teams, the mental health of that city is actually genuinely happier. Detroit is a prime example of this. Detroit can get one or two good players on their roster, the Lions, and and it's how they've done it. They did it to Barry Sanders. Barry Sanders is one of the best running backs of all time.
Calvin Johnson.
You want to know why the Lions have never won a Super Bowl? Is because they didn't put any support around Barry Sanders to where they could actually be a competitive team. The same with Calvin Johnson. The same with Matt fucking Stafford.
Yep.
Like it's that's what they do. And so when, as an organization, you don't invest in more than one player, you're not going to get results from more than one player.
Right. You
get what you pay for. That's one of the things that these people, they try to talk to us about all these higher end brands. Oh, you get what you pay for. If you invest in a Bose sound system instead of just a cheap $200 one from Walmart, you're going to get a higher sound quality. Or if you, if you get a Samsung smart TV instead of the Walmart brand smart TV, you're going to get a better quality of experience with that Samsung TV than that Walmart TV. You get what you pay for.
Sony
Aquos out of the project, more support from the company. These are all these things that you're paying for when you pay for a brand. Well, right now, these teams, their brands aren't worth dick. And so as a result, the city around them, they can't support that team. So the only happy sports fans that are in those cities are the ones that support other teams that come to play in those cities.
Yeah. The Detroit Lions are kind of like TCL.
Yeah.
The Detroit Lions are like a TCL TV.
Yep. Of the NFL. Yep.
They're like what's that really cheap brand that is it it's like Eclipse or something, the TV brand. They make every one of their TVs is like $100 cheaper than the actual inch in every other one, because they just are absolute shit. You can tell if that thing hits a corner when you're moving it in, it's gonna blow a pixel and not work.
Yeah,
it's just gonna blow a pixel and not work. But yeah, that's the Detroit Lions as a franchise,
or the Jets. It's another prime example, and that's why. But going back to that, what we were talking about, that's why I give Zach Wilson a little bit of leeway, because, well, yes, there are some issues with his play that are based on him. But part of that comes from having the support around him to make sure that it can be drawn out. Great coaches draw those things out of player. The talent that comes from Mac Jones is partially because of Bill Belichick, Tom Brady, The reason that Brady is today is because of Bill Belichick. You can't deny that. Yes, Brady is great in his own right, but Brady would not be the player he is today without Bill fucking Belichick.
Absolutely. And so much of the quarterback game is up here. So
Right.
The other positions in football are reactionary positions, almost every single one of them. Yes. Obviously they involve football intelligence. Obviously you have to know your route. Obviously you have to, guard the guys in the correct way, use the correct footwork, all of that stuff.
Know your job.
But number one and overall, you can make up for a lot of those mistakes with athleticism straight up. If you're just a straight freak athlete, you can take a wrong step. You cannot properly use your footwork as a cornerback and still be an elite cornerback. What you cannot do as a quarterback, sorry, I said cornerback, and then you guys know what I'm saying. What you cannot do as a quarterback, a QB, is you cannot just out athleticism everybody, because if that was the case, Lamar Jackson is the greatest quarterback that has ever played in the NFL.
And Patrick Mahomes beats Tom Brady in the Super Bowl with the Chiefs and the Bucks
all day long. If it's about athletes, Lamar Jackson and Cam Newton have played for the Super Bowl for the last 8 years. But guess what? They're not even in the top. Not even in the top 10. Cam Newton's not even in the league anymore, and he was a freak athlete.
I still can't put Lamar Jackson in the top 10. I can't.
I don't think
he hasn't. He has not produced enough. We can talk about hype and athletic ability. Lamar Jackson has not produced enough to be a top 10 quarterback.
In a way, Tony, it shows exactly what we're talking about. Like that guy is a freakish athlete. We know this. We know how good he is with the ball in his hands. We know how talented his arm is. We know that he can throw the ball down the field. But because he has not got the head game together yet, I say yet because I think that he can absolutely do it. It's just I think that because of his athleticism, it actually is a hindrance to him because he wants to get out of the pocket and he wants to run. Because why wouldn't you if you run a 4.2 and you can just like run out of the pocket and spin and make guys hit each other? Like, why would you not want to do that? Like, obviously you're going to want to do that.
But the problem is you can't have a quarterback that's successful that sucks in the pocket.
Absolutely not. In today's NFL.
And that is Lamar Jackson's problem is he sucks in the pocket.
To just stand up and just deliver dimes to people, you can't. Yeah.
And with Patrick Mahomes, that's one of the things that Andy Reid has to work with Patrick on is when he actually bails out and starts to do what Patrick Mahomes does. You can't just bail out at the first time of distress. Sometimes you have to stick in there and you have to wait until right before that hit comes in and get rid of the ball because that's how the play is supposed to go. And that's how it's going to be the most successful for what the team is going to do once they get to that next play. Because when all you're doing is breaking out at the first time of distress, you're going to be like Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl and run 497 yards behind the line of scrimmage and only score 9 points.
With all of Patty Mahomes, my adopted son's flash, and with all of his flash and all of these behind, no look passes and the falling away and the lateral in the Super Bowl where he's literally like halfway to the ground and throws like a 40-yard pass, with all that flashy excitement, the best Patrick Mahomes has ever been in a game is when he goes 9 of 9 for 81 yards and a touchdown, and the Chiefs score in 1:31 because he stood back in the pocket and went, all right, there's 1, there's 2, there's 3, there's 4, and he just marches. They march if he stays back in the pocket.
And that's why there's a lot. And that's why there's, in the debate with how the Chiefs are going to do this year and how Patrick Mahomes is going to do without Tyreek Hill. It's going to be a lot easier for Patrick Mahomes to do more of that this year because now you've got he's going to have what he hasn't had in years past, which is more vertical room to place the ball. When you're throwing to Tyreek Hill's only 5'9", 5'10".
Right.
But most of the guys in the NFL over 6 foot.
But he created
6'1", 6'2".
Tyreek, though, created vertical room by being past people. He could run past people, therefore the ball could be vertical because he didn't have to throw it into space because he just let Tyreek go get it, and you can throw it vertical then. But I get what you're saying.
But the difference is you have to spend 4 seconds letting that play develop and Tyreek get open when you may only have 2.5 seconds before you got to get rid of that ball in the pocket or bail out. And then once you bail out, everything breaks down. Even for the offense, it becomes almost chaotic unless it's a planned rollout, because then the offensive line already has a plan of where he's going to go. They don't have to react. They're just going with the flow. They know where they're supposed to go. And so that's and as we get back to Lamar Jackson with this, that's the flaw in Lamar Jackson as your quarterback is Baltimore is not getting him to spend more time in the pocket. They are not working on that pocket presence and that dominance that he needs if he wants to actually be a top 10. We'll even say if he manages to fix this, a top 5 quarterback in the NFL, is he has to fix his pocket issues. There's no other way around it.
And like we said, Patrick Mahomes is at his best in the pocket. He can do all of that out of the pocket stuff, but hands down and plain and simple, he is the best when he stays in the pocket and goes 9 for 9 on 5. Lamar Jackson is not. That is not what Lamar Jackson is best is when he gets out, gets to scramble, gets to make his legs do whatever they want to do and throw the ball down the field or just run, right? That's when
the problem with that is the shelf life that it has and the lack of results that you get from doing all of that because he's taking a lot more hits.
And like you said, consistently good results from that are not going to happen because of the scramble for it. And one thing with both of these guys, and this gets overlooked all the time, and I think it really gets overlooked with Patrick Mahomes because he's so good out of the pocket, right?
Right.
That offensive line needs to be solid for him because if he sees pressure, what's the first thing that he does? That back, he does the back around thing. You know what I'm talking about? Where it's like and he'll just roll back. And if he's out, he's done. You're not getting a pocket pass after that. So the longer the offensive line can hold him and go, Patty, we got you. Just make the pass that you can make because he can make every throw imaginable to the sidelines, every throw. And if they create a pocket for him for longer, he'll start to go, oh, okay, well, this is easier to do. I can just do this. That's the idea.
And that's why Kansas City won't pay Orlando Brown the money he wants is because he hasn't earned it. He was first in the NFL for QB hits allowed last year for his position.
Like worst.
Worst.
Yeah.
Worst. And
like
that's why the Chiefs were like, no, you're going to earn that top 5 money because right now you're not even top 10.
So they're going to have a determined left tackle, a huge determined left tackle, by the way. Orlando Brown is a gigantic individual.
Big dude. Yeah.
Yeah. I think he's like 6'8", 360, something like that. He's a big dude.
He's stupid big.
I'd feel all right pocket passing with that.
Yeah.
Like, you take whoever's over there. Also, I wouldn't feel okay with it when I have to see Joey Bosa twice a year. That guy's a freaking animal.
And you know, the that's the other thing is the talent, the AFC West is just so goddamn huge. Like the NFL has super teams now. They're all just in one fucking division.
I think people are sleeping on Denver too.
And no,
I don't know how Denver's going to go within that division because it is so tough, but Denver's going to be good. Like Russell Wilson is good, guys. I don't know if you guys just didn't see him play in Seattle. Russell Wilson is fucking really good. Like
it is not
Ciara's husband is good.
Ciara's husband is great.
Ciara's husband is super good.
It's impossible to think because each team only has 6 division games. 2 against each of your 3 division opponents. That means that even if, so let's say the AFC West as a group, they split all of their division games. So 3-3 in the division. That's still 13, 14 other games that are not against division opponents where the talent is not near the level that they see in division games.
You don't think Russell Wilson's going to go over 500? Exactly. Like you don't think Russell Wilson's going to go over 500?
Every AFC West team could potentially finish with a winning record this year. Every team in the division. There is not another division in football that even has a prayer of 3 teams finishing with a winning record, unless you go the NFC. I think the division in the NFC with that's the 49ers and the Cardinals. Was that the NFC West?
Yeah. Yep.
They could have 2 because the Niners and the Cardinals could both finish above 500. That I could see, but most teams most divisions aren't gonna have that many teams finish above 500. It's just not gonna happen.
And the NFC East is going to have 1 team at 500, and they're all going to be under 500 after that.
Yeah.
The NFC least.
Yeah, the NFC least. Like you'll have either the Eagles or the Cowboys that'll finish at or 1 game above 500.
8-9.
Everybody 8-9, 9-8. Everybody else will be below.
Yeah. And those are a couple of the biggest football cities in the United States too.
Which
Philly,
is
Dallas.
crazier. Yeah.
Philly, Dallas, like Washington. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what Maryland does. Crab cakes and football. That's what Maryland does.
Crab cakes and football.
That's what Maryland does.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Is that guy taking steroids? It's almost like guarding a freaking racehorse. Wedding Crashers, guys.
Yeah.
Just watch the football scene. It's fantastic.
Okay, and then before we wrap up tonight, I kind of threw this at you a little bit before we started because I haven't really talked about it, but I came up with a theory today. So they were talking over the weekend about the fact that the individual who Dan successfully predicted would win the home run derby, Juan Soto, turned down a 15-year, $440 million contract with the Washington Nationals. The Nationals are now entertaining trade offers for Soto. One of the word out, and of course none of this is substantiated because it's not going to be, but the word that seems to be coming out of the Nationals camp is that the team that's going to trade for Soto needs to not only provide top tier compensation to the Nationals for him, but also be willing to sign him to a 15-year, $540 million deal. I'm actually going to say I don't think that's what it's going to. I don't think that's what it would take to sign Soto if he was a free agent.
It won't take that, but like just let's talk hypothetically if it did.
I think that.
Do you want your team doing that? Do you want the Boston Red Sox to do that if that's the case?
So because I'm certain you haven't seen this. Aaron Judge said today that he would take less money if the Yankees trade for Soto.
If they have to do all that, I don't want them to. I'm saying absolutely give up the farm for him. Give up every prospect that we have because I don't give a shit about the prospects. I'm trying to win right now. Aaron Judge is 30 years old. Okay, he's not a spring chicken.
No.
He is going to vastly get overpaid towards the end of his career by the Yankees. They will give him a huge contract in which only the first 3 or 4 years will actually be worth anything. Okay,
right.
We'll get production out of him for about 5 years.
For those of you that don't know, that's fairly common in baseball anyway.
Yes, we will pay him a lot for the first 5 years of what he's going to do, and then for the last 5, we'll try and limp him along at great detriment to our team. But I don't care about that. I'm trying to win right now. Get Juan Soto, give up Jason Dominguez, and whoever's in our farm system. We have a lot of prospects. Absolutely give Washington fair compensation. Do not just jump into a 15-year, $540 million contract. That is a freaking commitment. That is a lot.
And for a lot of people that are freaking out over the value of this contract, let me remind you of one thing. The part of the high value of this contract comes from the longevity of the deal. So just to put this in perspective, $540 million over 15 years.
It's only about
36 million a year.
36.
There are players in Major League Baseball right now that make $40 million a year.
Yes, Mike Trout makes like 46.
And so there are several players that are making north of $40 million a year. And so ultimately what they're doing is they are trying to lock a hot young talent up into bouncing from team to team and pushing salaries even higher because it's guys like Soto not signing long-term deals and only signing 3 or 4 year deals, and then it's a bidding war again, that are driving player salaries up. Because just like with Patrick Mahomes, there are a lot of people that still don't realize how team-friendly that deal is for Kansas City. And so if you can get Soto on because a 15-year, $440 million deal for Juan Soto is a fucking steal because it's less than $30 million a year.
Even at 540. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that's why they turned it down. And that sounds ridiculous when people were like, oh, he turned down $440 million. Dude, he turned down less than just above average pay for his talent. Like that's kind of just like he gets paid middle of the road for like being a starter. Exactly.
And so, but the other thing that I want to postulate here that could be impacting Juan Soto's decision, and as I think about it, and I think about where everything's at, I happen to think I'm right at least to an extent. I think part of the reason that Juan Soto turned that deal around is he doesn't want to sign a long-term commitment with a Nationals team that does not invest in championships.
Of course not. Of course
he
doesn't.
He wants a trophy. He wants MVPs. He wants those accolades. He doesn't want to just be a professional baseball player. He wants to be a World Series champion. He wants to be able to have that shot at a World Series MVP. And so that's why these teams that have a shot of signing him, or of getting this kind of a deal are going to be the Giants. They're going to be the Dodgers, the Yankees. The Sox technically could, but they won't. And there's not really.
They have other fish to fry.
They have other fish to fry. Boston's, technically there are some places that have ranked them at about 6th in line to possibly get him, but no, it's not going to happen. Boston fans just fucking forget about it.
They have other fish to fry, and it might down the road. It might be a Mike Trout.
But your top 5 teams are the Yankees, the White Sox, the Dodgers, the Giants, and the Astros.
The White Sox, huh?
The White Sox are actually second favorite.
I like the White Sox roster,
and I think, and that's the thing is the problem with the White Sox is coaching. Tony and La Russa is a terrible coach. I've said that. I've been saying this since last year. I am the conductor of the hate train for Tony fucking La Russa, and I will wear that goddamn set of overalls and cap proudly and happily shovel that fucking coal into that steam train and push it along.
It's not a show. It's not a show. Tony's trying to send La Russa straight to the old nursing home. He wants to put him in a home.
Not even a good one.
One where they abuse the patients.
A bad home. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
But if you put Juan Soto on that White Sox roster and you fix the coaching problem in Chicago, that is a World Series team. And that's one of the reasons why Chicago is a front runner. And of course, if you get rid of Gallo, you put Soto, because Gallo plays right, correct?
Yeah.
So you put Soto in right, you get rid of Gallo. Gallo's a part of that trade package. And you put Soto in right.
Yeah, or just drop or just pull one of the guys we play in left because Hicks can play right, center, or left. So you just if Soto wants to play left, he can play left field.
Yeah,
he'll take over left field.
We'll
figure it out.
They have the flexibility.
We'll figure it out.
One of the things that I think is interesting about this deal is because, first of all, I legitimately think that part of the problem is he doesn't want to fucking stay in Washington, and I don't blame him.
How's that working out for Bryce Harper?
Exactly. How it's working is Bryce Harper is now the Phillies.
That's what I'm saying. Like, how's it working out for Bryce Harper as far as signing a big deal with a team that's not going to actually do anything for you? Exactly. The Phillies, who haven't done anything for him.
Yeah,
they got Didi Gregorius. They took our leftovers.
Yeah,
shortstop.
And that's the problem. And I think that I think that a lot of this stems from if Soto was, let's say Soto was on the Giants. If Soto's on the Giants and the Giants come in and they say, hey, 15 years,
500.
We'll say 440.
Okay.
Well, no, because honestly, they would probably bump that up. So we'll say $500 million. We'll round it out. $500 million. Biggest contract in sports history. Soto's signing that deal. I think it has a better chance at least a better chance of happening than the situation he's in now. And the one of the reasons, so he still has 2 years left on his deal. So Juan Soto has 2 years left on his deal, and these 2 years are going to be arbitration eligible. So realistically, for those of you that don't know, sparing you the math, you're like 16 to 20 million a year is about where he's going to land. Not expensive for the talent level and draw that you're getting with Juan Soto. So he wants out of the organization. Because if it wasn't for that, he would not be on the trade block right now. It would be at least next year at the trade deadline before that starts flying around.
The Nationals the Nationals have realized at this point. I mean, it's not public, but it might as well be with all the signs pointing towards it that he doesn't want to be there. So now they're in let's get everything we can mode.
Yeah,
for him, which is it's a good strategy. Honestly,
it's business.
You offered him, and like me and Alicia were talking about the other night. You realize that's literally that's like a dude who gets super ready to propose to a girl. and he's got everything set up, and he's got all the flowers, and he like does the most adorable things before it, like it has the ultimate like proposal thing, and she says no. Like that's literally what Juan Soto did to the Washington Nationals. Just left him on one knee there. Just it's fucking crazy. But it's like a whole group of people, not just like one dude, proposing to a woman. It's like a whole front office was like ready to go. Like, yes, we got all this money together. We got $440 million. And they thought it was all cool and shit. And they're like, yes, he's definitely going to take our deal. And he was like, no. Nah, G. And they were like,
because
what?
And when you look at this from his perspective, one of the things you have to remember, he's only 23. His current deal has 2 years left after this season. So he'll be 25 when whatever new deal he signs takes effect. So that pits him with the organization potentially, if he goes through the full length of the deal, which is unlikely, but just for argument's sake, we have to consider it. And to put the same organization until he's 40.
Yeah.
He does not want to stay with the Nationals until he's 40. He wants to win a World Series. He wants to, have a shot at that World Series MVP. He wants to, he wants a big baseball career. And he knows now he's not going to get that with Nationals. And so that's why I think that part of this comes from he's turning down the biggest baseball contract in history because of where he's at.
Absolutely. And I think this comes back full circle to what we were kind of talking about earlier with the franchises, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
exactly,
he wants to hang in the rafters in Fenway, or he wants to hang in the rafters at Yankee Stadium. He wants to be in that garden with all the rest of those guys. And like, that's what he wants to be remembered as. He doesn't want to be remembered as Vlad Guerrero Sr. That's his biggest. That's got to be his biggest.
I think that's a great comparison.
Like he doesn't want, and I love Vlad Guerrero Sr., but Vlad Guerrero Sr., his whole career was basically just wasted in Canada, and then got literally in Montreal, and they're moving around all over the place. They don't give a shit. They loved having him. He was a huge draw, and that's all he was. He was a great player who got trapped, and you can really get. And I heard Cal Herb was talking about this today. He made a great point. You can get trapped on baseball teams because you can't make your teammates better. No. How can you make your teammates better in baseball? You can't really.
And that's why I stick with. And I didn't get a chance to watch Cowherd today, so it seems like I think Colin's kind of alluding to the same thing that I am. Then is the Juan Soto, if he's going to sign this kind of a long-term deal, and teams are doing this because, like I said, they don't want the cost of players to jump up as dramatically as it has in recent years, because baseball is going to have a money issue soon if they don't get this stuff under control. But the issue on Soto's side is, he doesn't want to be remembered for signing the biggest baseball contract in history. He wants to be remembered for the results that he puts on the field, his name in the rafters, the championships, the MVP, stuff like that, because he knows he's not going to get them in Washington.
And I think that if you don't think that Stanton and Judge, those two teenage boys, they act like little kids all the time. I don't know if you've noticed that. It's hilarious.
If you see them interacting and they're not on the field, like they're just hanging out, like they look like their little brother. They're brothers.
Yeah, they were watching Chris Sale's injury on the iPad the other day at Yankee Stadium. I don't know if you saw this. And it was him and Judd. It was Judge, Stanton, and who else was it? I can't remember who the other one was. They're like little kids. Like they're like, oh, you like came into his finger, and like they're like, ah. Oh. I was like, these guys are hilarious. But if you don't think that they're in Juan Soto's ear right now, just going, oh, bro, it is the fucking shit in the Bronx. It is the shit in the Bronx.
Of course they are.
You are a god. You're a god if you play for the Yankees, and let alone if you're good for the Yankees, you're whatever you want.
And so because of all of this, like I told you earlier about Judge saying that he would take less money if they brought Soto in, here's the thing. I have a theory about Aaron Judge turning down that contract, and it's exactly this. There's been so much criticism about Cashman and Boone, the GM and head coach of the Yankees, and the roster that the roster that they had last year was fucking terrible. Not just by baseball standards, but by the Yankees standard, the standard that is in the Bronx for the New York Yankees. Because again, this is a top-tier organization. The standard is so much higher than the Arizona fucking Diamondbacks.
So not by baseball standards. It wasn't terrible because they made the playoffs. So it wasn't terrible. But by Yankee standards, absolutely, that was a garbage team. That was embarrassing.
And so Judge knows. So him turning down the deal is a warning shot.
Fix it.
And now that fix it. And with just a few subtle moves this year, admittedly, and I know that I was a big critic of what the Yankees did in the offseason, but clearly it's working because they're the best team in baseball. Now, Soto, who would, if the Yankees grab Soto, as long as they don't give away too many other pieces,
I don't think they're going to.
The Yankees, which I don't think they would.
Prospects,
I mean, they're going to prospects,
which Aaron Judge don't give a shit about.
Prospects, and you'll probably see, Aaron Gallo and maybe another on-field piece. Yeah, because you're going to get at least 2 starters.
It'd be probably
or on the 26 man rosters, like Gleyber Torres,
Gallo, and like 5 prospects and a bunch of picks and money and all that shit. I'd be absolutely fine with that.
Yeah, and
I like Gleyber Torres.
I do, but I mean, honestly, he's not Juan Soto.
Nobody is,
and so but New York makes this change and makes this grab. That they are instantly, on paper, a shoo-in for the World Series, and this gives them
for the next 5 years.
For the next 5 years at least. This is, grabbing Juan Soto is something that could catapult the Yankees back into dynasty mode that they had in the 80s and 90s and that they lost.
And Tony, if you probably agree with this, I don't think it even matters if they win a bunch of titles. I think the hype alone of them being back at dynasty level, that talented, and the potential every year that they're just going to be in the World Series, and they will. And I'm not saying they're not going to win World Series, but they're going to be there every single year. If that happens,
they'll at least be that. That's at least an ALCS every year, like where the Chiefs have been for the last 3 years, getting to the American League Championship. Like that's the bottom of their floor. That's their bottom. They're expecting World Series, but if they make it to the ALCS and then lose, it's disappointing, but it's not a complete failure.
Not the end of the world.
Being a wild card slot, losing in the first round, that's a catastrophic failure in New York with that roster.
Pinstripes.
Yeah.
If you're there, and with that roster too, I mean, obviously, and like with that roster, and you got Clay Holmes now. What is he, 25?
And the best closer in baseball right now.
They're
like
loaded,
fucking ridiculous.
Loaded with young talent, pitching wise, like Nestor the Molester. You got Nestor the Molester and Garrett Cole.
Got to add Nestor the batter molester because it's not as bad.
Nestor, and Garrett Cole's got at least 5 good years left in him.
I mean, he finally found some spider tack that they can't catch on him, and it's working for him. So he's getting back in there.
That's how we do it, guys. Cheat.
Every fucking team does. Every
team
do.
Cheats. They all cheat. Do. Yes,
it's a $1 billion industry for each sport. Of course,
getting Juan Soto is cheating. Getting Juan Soto is cheating without cheating.
That's playing MLB The Show 22 with salary cap mode off is what it is.
With at that point, trade decline off. So you could just you could trade Tim LeCastro for Juan Soto straight up. You just want to make a roster spot, so you just like trade Tim LeCastro for him, and then he's on your bench immediately. It's like, oh yeah, he's not going to be on the bench for long though.
He's not going to be on the bench for long.
Not going to be on the bench for long. Yeah, but just real quick before we go, their lineup then changes to LeMahieu, okay, who's one of the best leadoff hitters in the league. And one of the best second baseman, third baseman, which is crazy because he's like 6'5". He's like he looks like he like should be a country farm. He looks like he should be like baling hay. Yeah, he always has a big of a chew in his mouth.
He's a big corn-fed boy. He's
huge, dude. He's huge.
Yeah.
He's a huge second baseman. So he looks
like he should be from Nebraska.
Soto turns into a small guy, and Soto's not small. He's like 6'3".
Yeah.
He hits second, lefty. So you go right, left, Judge, Stanton, right? And then, or you could go Rizzo, Judge, Stanton. So that's 3, 4, 5. If they get rid of,
Trevino.
I don't think they're going to have to get. They're not going to have to give up Gleyber Torres. I don't think they want to, and I don't think they will.
I think honestly, I could. It was funny because I wasn't thinking about Locastro, but with the results he's produced this year, he might have some trade value.
It'll be Carpenter at 6, Matt Carpenter, who's the best hitter in baseball right now.
Right.
And then it'll go Torres and IKF and Jose Trevino or Higashioka, and they'll improve their catcher situation. Just keep one of your catcher prospects if you think he's going to be within the next 5 years, if he's right there, or try and get one back at some point. Like, or just trade for fucking Yasmani Grandal for 5 years. Like, do you know what I'm saying? That guy's a freak. Like, just they'll do something to fill that space in. And those last 2 guys been awesome. IKF I like him. Like, he's a great defensive, great defensive shortstop, and he just contact hitter, dude. All he does is just never hits home runs, never strikes out.
But that's all you need. That's all you need.
You don't need a bunch of power at the bottom lineup.
Because, in the Yankees' problem last year was they were so focused on power, they couldn't actually get anybody that could make contact. They didn't have anybody to actually make contact.
They overcompensated a lot with that. They were like, "Oh, small stadium. Let's just hit bombs." Because the year before that, that's all they did was just hit bombs. And in the last 3 years, I guess they would just hit fucking bombs like the whole time. And like then they get Gallo and they're like, just hit bombs. And it's like it doesn't work like that, guys. You got to play a little defense and do all this. And they realize that. But that lineup becomes ridiculous. If you can get this version of all those guys, obviously, because they had all these guys last year. Gallo was a better version last year. So imagine if Gallo's still in fucking 2016 Rangers form, and the
drop off on Joey Gallo was actually something that's surprising to me. It's. I mean, obviously everybody has drop off. I'm not going to criticize any athlete for dropping off as they get older, but the decline from Joey Gallo from 4 years ago to now is just, and even last year to now, because he was far better last year than he is this year even. And last year was kind of a disappointment.
And it's those batting average points. I mean, he's down 50 batting average points. He doesn't make contact. He's become the actual definition of the 3 outcome player, which he wasn't so much. He was his whole career.
Strikeout for those of you that don't know.
Yeah, sorry guys, but yeah. Yeah, it's just us baseball experts using lingo. Sorry, and sabermetrics and lingo training. And all these advanced words. What's the war? His war and his what's another one of those sabermetrics? The one they use now is fucking oh god, I heard it the other day. Have you heard the new one? Damn it, you know what I'm talking about. You've heard it. It's just crazy sounding statistic, and it's literally just like. It's just like how many. It's like how many win. It's not wins above replacement. It's like how many like at bats do you trade? I don't know. It's weird as fuck. But I forgot what I was even talking about now. Yeah. Anyway.
Well, and that's the problem. And, the Yankees had a lot of hitters that were like that last year, 3 outcome hitters, and so now you're down to where Gallo is your worst offender now, which. It's not a bad problem to have, but he's only hitting 165. So that's your problem. And so that's why you have even more incentive to get past Soto, because if you have a better hitter than Joey Gallo in that lineup, that game against Boston doesn't go to 10 innings in this last series. You win that in that.
Yeah. And I think you do downgrade a little bit with getting rid of Gallo defensively, but since they upgraded so much,
of a drop off,
right? Though. And like since they upgraded so much everywhere else, I mean, I don't really know why.
And with how young he is, he's going to get back up there. Don't get me wrong, Joey Gallo is great defensively, but Soto can get there.
He doesn't even need to be at that level. He just needs to be solid. Just be solid across the board.
And when you look at some of the potential opponents that the Yankees are going to have to face in the postseason, like Toronto, like Houston, which is going to be, I think, their biggest test is when they face Houston in the playoffs. Houston is the Yankees' kryptonite this year. So it's not even Boston; it's Houston.
The only team that I'm scared of, legitimately, they could take us out. They could take us out in the ALCS.
And that's
easily.
The thing is unless you have, unless the Mariners manage to work their way up through the wild card and take and and get up there, and it's the Yankees and the Mariners instead. But with the Astros, like right now, they are the one that could upset the Yankees season and their shot at a World Series this year. If you add Soto to that Yankees roster, I'm less scared of Houston than I was before if I'm a Yankees fan.
Just because of how those concentrated at bats, how the playoffs go, and like, dude, and if you watch, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you watch this Yankees lineup, and you have several times this year, obviously, they are just built for the playoffs. All of them take like 6 pitches in at bat. Like they look like playoff game at bats every single game. That's all they do. That's why they're so good on offense.
It's one of the great things about Anthony Rizzo and why I wish Boston would have picked him up last year when he was on the trade, but when he was on the trade market, because it is not uncommon if you're watching a Yankees game to see Rizzo take a 16 pitch at bat.
We were talking on the phone that day, and he took a 21 pitch. He fouled like 16 balls off or something like that.
Yeah,
fouled off 16 consecutive foul balls, and all he's doing is just slapping at it. He's like fouling them off on purpose, just over and over.
Because and the value of a hitter like Rizzo in your lineup is because they are the ones that are going to truly wear your pitches down. Because your pitchers don't want to have 21 pitch innings, and they burn through that in one at bat. In a late game, if you have a pitcher go 21 pitches, like one of your relievers goes 21 pitches in an at bat, that reliever has used up their pitches for the game, but you still have to have them in for 2 more batters or the end of the inning.
Yeah, and it's going to get
you're
rough.
Fucked as a team.
It's going to get rough.
That off in a late game, and so that's why it's one of the reasons why the Yankees have been so detrimental, so damaging this year to pitching staffs as they played, and they are the best team in baseball. So it's interesting to see though, because if Soto does that, I mean, Yankees are the favorite for the World Series at that point instantly. And right now they simply are, because they have the best record in baseball. But there's still people that know the game, that look at Houston, that look at the Dodgers. It's not a clear path right now.
It's never 100%. Obviously, this would just give them
even with Soto,
advantage.
It's not 100%. But no. It clears the path and dries the mud a little bit, or a lot, if you pick up Juan Soto if you're the Yankees.
And basically what happened with Rizzo and with Carpenter, and then now if they get Soto, what happened is, like with Rizzo fouling all those balls off, eventually what's he do? He gets one and pulls it, because that's all he's trying to really do at the end of those. He's just trying to stay alive. So I'm just going to start pulling it as much as I can, right? If I foul him off the opposite way, whatever. But if he gets one and pulls it towards the foul line, what used to be a fly out at Wrigley Field is a homer in Yankee Stadium. And what used to be a fly out for Matt Carpenter in St. Louis at Busch Stadium is now it's Busch, right? Yeah. At Busch Stadium is now a homer for Matt Carpenter.
Right.
And Juan Soto's going to do the same thing. Juan Soto fouls off pitches all the time, and all he's trying to do is just pull it to the left. And if he just clacks one with one hand, that's a home run in Yankee Stadium. That's why those lefties that just stay alive are so good there. They're so good. And it's exciting.
And the Yankees need another good left-handed bat anyway. And this is another reason why the Soto for the Yankees fit is so good. And I think that Benintendi not being an option for the Yankees now, because it's been found out that he's not vaccinated, I think that makes the Soto trade to the Yankees that much more possible. And it's also why I don't think Boston will make a play on Benintendi either, because they're also looking at their most impactful series of the year is the Yankees and the Sox still have to play the Rays in Toronto at least one more time. And you're looking at the potential of having to face Toronto in the playoffs if they're a wild card team. So that means games in Toronto. And if they're not vaccinated, you can't take them with. And those are going to be games.
In New York, right? Because he's got to be in New York, right?
Well,
visiting players can be. Visiting players cannot be.
Can be or cannot be. But if Benintendi's on your roster,
right,
he's not a visiting player.
Right. Yeah, see, I got you. But you're talking about the Red Sox, though, too. Is that a Boston thing?
Well, Boston, Boston's looking at it especially because of the results the Yankees have and the fact that Boston's going to be fighting for a wild card slot, they have to be thinking about Toronto. And so you can't be making a move, not calculating, I'm going to need this player for 6 games, we'll say, because the Sox have 1 series left in Toronto, and then you're thinking at least 2 or 3 games in Toronto during the playoffs.
For anybody who doesn't,
Toronto makes it as well.
For anybody who doesn't know, guys, you can't go to Canada
if you're not vaccinated.
The only Canadian team is Toronto. Yeah, you can't enter the country. So those guys have to stay back. So they just won't have them. If it's a series in Toronto, the games they just won't go.
The Kansas City Royals just had to put 10 guys on the restricted list because they couldn't take them with to Canada because they weren't vaccinated. This did include Andrew Benintendi and Whit Merrifield. Along with, I think Nick Prado was another one. I can't remember all of them, but
I get it.
Royals, so nobody gives a fuck.
I get it if it's like, for real. Like those fountains are sure pretty, but that's where I get to go for games every time. This is Kauffman. Yay. That big crown out in center field's cool. And those fountains are pretty. But like, here's my question, I guess, before we wrap it up. Is it even worth, if you're a fucking professional athlete at this point, like, yeah, I get it if you just like work at Lowe's, not getting vaccinated or whatever, right? Like I get it. It's a personal choice. I'm not going to I don't care, honestly. Like I'm not vaccinated. I live in a place that's literally has 4,000 people and like a huge, there's literally not enough people around here, guys, to even pass a message along, let alone a disease.
And most of the people in that town are old, and one bad bout of COVID would probably decimate the population.
Well, I mean, I call it cleaning, but yeah, that's
God damn it.
We just clean it right up, clean all the.
But anyway.
There's like 80 houses for sale. But yeah, no, like I don't care either way. But like if you're a professional athlete and it's like that's you could affect your career, is it really worth just do it? What adverse effects have they seen that are so overwhelming? I want to see the scientific evidence that's so overwhelming that if you get vaccinated, you're going to like have like kids with like ears on their face and stuff.
Right. And for me, I'm in the same position because I am vaccinated, but it was something that I chose to do. And part of it is with the fact that I, on the side, is one of my side hustles. Occasionally I do work in the music industry. And I understand that for some of these other countries that I would have to go to, if I get back into that, I need to have it. And I don't want to have to be frantically trying to deal with all of that shit. I got it done so that it's done and I don't have to worry about it.
You made a professional choice.
I made a professional choice, but I made it for myself. And so I'm not going to begrudge these players the ability to make that choice for themselves. But I want to see what information that they're looking at that makes them think that this isn't something that that this is something that is going to be harmful and not helpful for their bodies. Because I understand that the efficacy of the various immunization of the various vaccinations of COVID is highly in debate. And the technology, the science behind it is still very new. But the truth about mRNA technology and the science behind the vaccine is it was created specifically to fight COVID, and there's still a lot to learn. And so, this is going to take time, but also the same thing that they used to create the COVID vaccines is also being used now with success to fight cancers. HIV vaccines are going to come from this. They're already in process. There's already studies going on these type of things. So for me, it's like when I see all of these things that are already coming from the science behind the vaccine, and I'm not seeing a lot of negative effects, I legitimately, as a person, want to know where the problem is, because you can't come at me with this vaccines cause autism shit, because I'm going to call you a piece of shit.
That's my question, I guess, is like, where is all this empirical? And I've read stuff. I haven't read that deeply about it, so I'm probably just sounding like an idiot right now. But like, where is all this empirical evidence that there's so many harmful things, harmful enough that you're going to risk your livelihood and the livelihood of your family? Do you know what I'm saying? To like not get it. Like what empirical evidence that it does negative shit exists, I guess.
Exactly. Because, and what are these negative things that are so bad that are legitimately worse from the things that you can get from the COVID-19 virus and its mutations that have been ripping through the community and, causing a substantial amount of deaths. And I understand it's obvious about population control. The government did this, the government did that, the Chinese government. Shut the fuck up. That's not what we're talking about. Let's just look at this from a realistic, objective point of view. For these guys, for their job, this shot is important to be able to do your job completely. And when it comes to athletics and sports, as an athlete, the best ability is availability. Because, well, you know, Kyrie Irving is a prime example. His value has plummeted because of his lack of availability. His ability on the court is undisputable. You cannot dispute the ability of Kyrie Irving on the court, but you can't count on him to be there. And with his, you know, his choice, it is his choice to not get the vaccine. If you're somebody that has to go to Toronto a lot, or if you're looking to prospect of Toronto, you're having to already look at planning to miss games for this elite level talent that is also supposed to be making top tier money. So you're investing a substantial amount of things into this.
Yeah.
For somebody that you can't rely on. And so that's why Kyrie's value has gone down, and nobody's going to pony up what Brooklyn wants for Kyrie because he's not worth it, because you don't know that he's going to be there physically and there mentally, which are two of the most important things. Because any GM in any sport, if it's a, you know, raw talent guy that's really good, but is going to be late to meetings, late to the bus, late to practice, isn't going to put the effort in at practice because they think that the raw talent's good, or a guy that grinds and shows up early, stays late, watches extra film, you know, always takes feedback and asks how they, you know, and wants to try and get better. If you ask the GM which of those two prototype players they would take without putting a name on it, just in general, they're going to take the second more than they're going to take the first. More GMs will take the second than the first. I would be surprised if every GM wouldn't take the second over the first.
A guy who's good for camaraderie, right?
Great in the locker room guy. Chemistry is important.
It is. Oh, obviously we've seen the psychology of entire teams affect outcome of over talent. And we've seen literally psychology affect outcome.
And I think that's another reason why the value of Kyrie has gone down, because a lot of teams are just willing to get rid of him when he says he wants to go. That says somebody that they don't like having in their locker room.
Right.
To me.
Terrell Owens. Perfect example. Ben Simmons.
Chad Johnson.
You know what? I think Chad's teammates liked Chad. I think that he was just a bit of a distraction as far as like, I think Randy Moss was actually more of Randy Moss's teammates loved him too, but he was more of a distraction outside. Like people just had this perception that he was a distraction almost, like kind of like Chad Ochocinco.
And I think that Chad, it's more the distraction that he creates. I'm not saying, because like OBJ, a lot of people like OBJ in the locker room, but he's not a one receiver anymore. So when you sign him as a team, because of the name that he has, he's getting more attention, unless you're the Rams, than your one receiver. And you don't want that.
Production, shit given up with, right? So production goes up, shit that they'll put up with goes up. Production goes
like
down.
Shannon Sharp says, that production intolerance.
Yep. Shit that they'll put up with goes down. So, yeah. One thing on the conspiracy. I just want to hit the conspiracy real quick. Okay, guys, this is
you couldn't resist. You couldn't resist.
I could not resist this conspiracy thing. I am not a firm believer.
If you get this video pulled off of Facebook, I will have a problem.
I'm not. What I'm not
think about it.
What am I?
Think about it.
What can I don't even know what I can possibly say, which is not probably a good start. No, I'm not. No, literally, this is all I'm going to say. I don't believe in all this, the conspiracy stuff with the government, all that stuff. That's ridiculous. I think it sounds ridiculous. The only statistic that you could literally even look at to say that somehow this was like a human made disease or whatever is that most diseases in the history of the world, influenza, all of them, have taken old people and young people alike, right? So infants, usually same mortality rate as older people just because of their immune system and stuff like that. This took older people and not younger people. I think that's the only thing you can even look at as being like, you know what I'm saying? Like, is it like a man-made disease or whatever? I think that's the only statistic you can even be like, all right, that seems a little fishy, but that could just be the nature of the beast. You know what I'm saying? Like nothing else looks like that.
just like in like a lot of viral diseases, because that's what COVID is it's a viral disease, and that's why it was so hard to create a vaccine, is because it was a virus and not a bacterial disease.
Right.
Is this virus attacked individuals, or it attacks individuals with weaker immune system. That's who sees the most impact from COVID as a whole. Weakened immune systems, especially those with respiratory issues. COVID pneumonia is a very common thing. A lot of the individuals that have been in the ICU because of COVID, it was COVID pneumonia that put them there.
It would be called an immunodeficiency virus, correct?
Right, and that's right, and that's one of the reasons why the mRNA science that's being used to work with COVID is also effective in things with some cancers, some other diseases. They're actually looking at using mRNA for a new flu virus, because part of the issue with viral diseases, and for those of you that don't know the science behind it, a bacteria disease pretty much stays the same. It evolves a little bit, but it doesn't develop near as much as a virus, where the virus grows and mutates as it goes person to person. So, even if we, you and I had the same strand of COVID-19, the same strain, the virus, looked at under a microscope, is going to appear different because it's developed differently between how we both contract.
It could also affect us completely differently.
Right. And so, so with the vaccine, it starves the virus so that it dies and prevents it from mutating. That's what the vaccine is designed to do. We're not talking about efficacy rates again. That's not what we're here for.
Right.
But that's what it's designed to do. And that's why we're seeing effectiveness with the same science with HIV and AIDS, because those are viruses that do the same thing. The only problem is those ones don't die until the person dies.
Right.
The only other way before mRNA technology that was actually completely effective, outside of some antiviral medications, I know they've done a lot in HIV and AIDS medications over the last 20 years, but the true effective way to kill the virus was to cook it out. It's kind of something you can't do when it's a human.
Right.
So,
you're trying to get the chocolate chips inside of the cookie burned out. You're going to burn the cookie.
Exactly. And this gives you a way to focus on the chocolate chips.
Right.
And so that's the importance behind the science. And so for me, one of the reasons I justified getting the virus is literally because I can be a part of this test, because I'm going to get to experience it, and my body is learning from that. And so
have you had COVID?
Yeah, I've had it twice.
I had it one time. Like literally right when it came out.
It was and for me it was in 2020. It was when the pandemic was first starting. So, for those of you that don't know, I haven't done it in a while because of everything that's been going on. I got away from it, but I especially back before the pandemic, I was doing stand-up comedy on a regular basis. I went to Missouri to do a show at the end of February of 2020. I was getting ready to change jobs, work for the company that I work for now. And I'd gotten the opportunity to do a show in St. Joe. We were going to do some charity work, stuff like that. And so I flew in on Thursday. It was the end of February. So it was a couple of weeks before the shutdowns started to happen. And there started to be discussions about things moving into the U.S., but nobody really knew what was going on. There weren't any tests, all of that. And I was okay. But when I flew home, like I got that up there, I was okay. When I got home, by the time I got home from the airport, it started when I was in Salt Lake catching my connecting flight. I started to feel like shit. By the time I got home that night, I was decimated. And I ended up being down for a week and a half.
Was yours like chest, cold, cough, flu type of stuff? Or was it like...
Yeah, and that's what I thought. I thought I had just gotten the flu from the flight, but I found out because I did an antibodies test a few months later, and that is where I found out that I had COVID. But okay, all right, we've been going for 2 hours. We need to wrap this shit up.
Mine just felt like I literally had like a chest cold, really, really bad chest cold cough all the fucking time. The second whole goddamn time I was awake.
The second time of COVID wasn't as bad. It was some chest stuff, but it was more the fever just fucking killed me.
Craziness. I was fucking exhausted from coughing at some point. It's ridiculous.
All right, so we will be back next week after the Sports Report, 11:30 p.m. Eastern. You can join the Sports After Dark group on Facebook. We will be happy to talk with you and come up with, we'd love to hear topics you want to hear us break down and dive into the human side of as we talk about this. And the crazy little thing called sports. Of course, as always, I'm a firm believer that Skip Bayless is one of the Illuminati and one of the lizard people, so definitely watch out for him. And yeah, for my partner Dan, myself, thank you for checking out Sports Report After Dark. Have a good night.
Click it.